I enjoy an unlikable female character. Those are the stories I want to hear. Those are the stories I want to tell.
Speaking of forming people, you not only have the identity of Teri Drake-Floyd, but you also have the identity of Lillah Lawson, whom is the name that you write under.
Mm-hmm.
So why a pen name, and what does she allow you to do that maybe Teri can't?
Right. So there's a genealogy tied to that as well. My pen name is a combination of the names Lily and Laura, who are two of my great-grandmothers. And then Lawson is a maternal family name. So I adopted that for a reason, because I'm parts of all of those women. But the reason that I decided to have a pen name when I first started out is because I was writing about themes that were kind of heavy. A lot of my work is not autobiographical, but definitely informed by my own experiences. And when I was younger, I wasn't quite as comfortable putting that out there under my own name. And so I started writing under this pen name, and then I got a publishing deal. And from that point on, I was like, well, I have one book out under this name. It's too late to change it now. So I've sort of just stuck with it. But I don't regret that, because I find that it does open me up in a way to talk about my work and put things out there without feeling the pressure of it being tied to who I am.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So it's almost giving you a sense of confidence. Would you compare it to Batman and Bruce Wayne,
mm-hmm.
or Beyonce and Sasha Fierce?
Sure. I think it's just like that. Or the one I always like to think of is like David Bowie and Ziggy Stardust,
Okay.
You have your persona and you have your real self.
Mm-hmm.
And they are, of course, going to overlap. They're the same person, but it's just the face that you wear to make it a little easier to express your art.
So does Lillah give you more confidence?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Confidence in just expressing yourself, or also in talking to other people?
Both for sure. Definitely when I'm writing, I feel more open to explore themes and things that I might not necessarily feel comfortable talking about with someone just as me. But also just in, when I do public engagements, things of that nature, it also frees me up to sort of speak more openly about things as well.
You mentioned how because you were young, you didn't want to put things under your name, and that's why you created that name. Mm-hmm. So after that time has changed, how has age made you feel more confident in your name as opposed to this alter ego?
It definitely has. Just the experience of writing for so many years. I've also had, since I started, my publishing journey, I also had a column in the Madison County Journal for a number of years, which was under my name. And publishing a few things here and there. For example, that flagpole article that came out when I was in New Zealand is under my real name as well. So just having that journey to have like bylines under my real name has freed me up a bit. Also, just getting older and feeling more comfortable being honest about things and not feeling like I have to hide or I have to cushion myself in something that's more palatable, maybe. I don't care as much about if someone doesn't like something I wrote. But when I was younger, I cared very much about that. So it's a combination of things. Also working at Nucci Space and having to, having a front-facing position where we talk a lot about subjects that can be uncomfortable for people has also informed that a lot. I've grown a lot just through that position.
So through that position, you've grown comfortable about talking around the things that are uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So in essence, practice makes progress.
Yeah.
That's interesting. By you exposing yourself more is when you start to become more comfortable with it.
It's true. Yeah. I remember when I first started working at Nucci Space, we had one of our events and I was going to speak on stage and I was really nervous about it. And one of my coworkers said something like, "You've done so many book signings and readings. Why is this nerve-wracking? This doesn't make sense." And I was like, well, because that's her. Mm-hmm. And this is me. Yeah. But that's exactly like you pointed out, eventually the two have fused together a bit and I don't find it as difficult as I once did. And I don't necessarily need that persona to hide behind anymore.
Did it ever feel messy when the lines started to blur?
There was a moment of panic where I definitely thought, oh no, people that actually know me are going to be reading my work and reading scenes that I might not want them to read, or they may have questions. And I was a little nervous about it, but I think there was a point with my debut novel where my grandfather read it. And I was very nervous because, there's a couple of scenes, like adult scenes in that. They're tastefully done, but they do exist. And that's my grandfather. And he
Understandable.
loved, yeah, I was so nervous about that. But he read the book. He loved it. He recommended it to people. He was its biggest champion.
No.
And I remember having a moment where I thought, okay, he sees me as an adult. Yeah. He sees me as a professional. The rest of it doesn't matter. And so I think that was kind of the point where I started to be more comfortable with it. And it has just gotten easier and easier with time.
I find it very wholesome that you come to a point in your life where it's like, I don't care what people think or what people say about my work. And you know what? I have grown comfortable with who I am and my form of expression. As long as I'm not hurting anyone, it's fine. But then you turn around and then you say, well, my grandfather's opinion was very, very meaningful to me. So I think if I were to take away anything from that, it would be, it's not all opinions don't matter, but the ones that mean something to you.
Absolutely. That is very true. Very true. And my grandfather in particular, anybody that knows me knows this, that, he was my person. He was my best friend and my biggest champion. He's the reason I'm a historian, the reason I do the genealogy. He instilled all of those things in me. So his opinion mattered the most. And in a way, having that approval, none of the rest of it does matter.
I love how even though he's almost a patriarchal figure in your life, it's not because of that. It's not because of his position in the family that created this idea where his opinion has this value to you, but it's the fact that he gave you everything that you now appreciate as to why it's valuable to you.
Very true. Yeah. The love of reading, the love of history, the love of family, all of those things came directly from him and from my grandmother as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And with your writing, you jump between Southern Gothic, historical fiction, and horror.
Yes.
So to you, what is the thread that ties all of it together? If I had to guess, it'd probably be genealogy.
For sure, that's one of them. Most of my fiction does draw from characters in my life or in my family tree, because I find them so interesting and inspiring. And I'm a big people watcher. I love to just kind of explore people's idiosyncrasies and their narrative, what has made them who they are. So much of my work is inspired by people that I either know, have known, or have researched. But also, as far as I started out doing historical fiction, which sort of started to veer into the Southern Gothic, and then that sort of veered into horror as I've gotten, more and more adept, I guess, at honing my craft, which sounds so pretentious. But I think that there is a thread there. And I love to read Stephen King. He's my favorite modern author. And one of the things that I love the most about him is that the monsters aren't actually the monsters in his work. It's oftentimes the adults who have good intentions, but are causing harm in some way. And a lot of the time that is related to trauma that they've experienced or, hardship that they've experienced. And his books sort of, the recurring theme to me seems to be that, there is always shades of gray with people. And often you can become the villain without meaning to, if you're an unhealed person or just because of circumstances. And my own work has started to kind of go that way. So I find that the darkness just creeps in, even if I don't intend for it to. And the South in particular just lends itself to that sort of vibe so well because it's humid, and it's muggy, and there's gross critters, and, there's moss, and there's, it just sort of lends itself to that sort of aesthetic so well. So I just find that most of my work that is set in Georgia, it just has a little bit of that creep factor, and I love that. I lean into it.
It's a fitting setting.
Yeah.
Especially with all the centipedes running around my house these days. I can't.
Yeah.
So your debut, Monarchs Under the Sassafras Tree, has a man so deep in grief that he nearly ends his own life, and a girl locked in an asylum. And as the recurring theme goes, this is actually based on the story of your great-grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
who was in the Milledgeville Asylum from 1910 to 1945.
Yep.
The story takes place in 1929, but these wounds are timeless,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even though it happened in that historical setting, you can still see these things occurring
Mm-hmm.
today. So what made you want to write pain from 100 years ago?
So I actually started researching this particular great-grandmother, or it's actually my great-great-grandmother, when I was doing my genealogy. And I didn't know much about her, and there were no records. And I asked my grandmother about it, and she didn't really want to talk about it very much. She was the one relative that I grew up not hearing stories about, which made me want the story, because I'm like, why isn't anybody talking about this woman? And as I got older and became an adult, my grandmother would start to tell me more things. And I discovered that she, had been mentally ill. She was in the asylum, that the family was quite ashamed of that. It wasn't something my grandma wanted known. I think she even told me, don't go around telling people about this, And that was baffling to me, because I just thought, this woman has been dead for decades. And even if that weren't the case, mental illness is not something to be ashamed of, but she was so ashamed and embarrassed and didn't want this to be told about her. And so I couldn't let it go. And I got it in my head that I wanted to find out as much as I could about this woman. So I took several trips to Milledgeville Asylum, which later was known as Central State Hospital. It's been closed since the 1960s, but for a long time there was still like a records office and a museum where you could go and get information. And I just hit brick wall after brick wall, and I wasn't able to find anything. There was a bad fire that destroyed a lot of records. A lot of them were purposely destroyed. Families would destroy them. And I just couldn't find anything out about her, and it bothered me. I wanted her story out there. And adding to that is that all of her children, she had 9 children, all of their stories were out there. Her husband's story was out there. And it just drove me nuts. So I decided one day I'm going to write something. And it's going to be made up. It'll be fiction, but I'm going to tell a story about a woman that has a similar fate to her. And I'm going to explain it in the way that I think might have been true. And that's what kind of started the novel. That's what gave me the idea. And then I ended up marrying some other things into it, some other components like Black Tuesday, the start of the Great Depression, and then writing about small town life in Madison County and in Oconee County. And it just sort of became what it became. And I'm very proud of that one. That is my favorite of all of my work. It's the one I'm the most proud of. And then ironically, a few years later, I did get some records about my great-great-grandmother and found out a few more details about why she was there and what her life was like there. And it diverged a little bit from the story I told, but it wasn't all that different. So that was interesting.
So a good bit of pattern recognition on your part.
Yeah, I think so.
And you mentioned your curiosity and the sense of isolation in regards to her story not being out there, gravitating you towards this. And many of your characters, not just this one person, are about women who are struggling, grieving, addicted, locked away. So why are those the women that you keep coming back to?
Those are the ones I find the most compelling, both reading and writing. I enjoy an unlikable female character. Those are the stories I want to hear. Those are the stories I want to tell. I think often women who kind of live their lives outside the margins, that don't really conform to the standards that are set for them, are the ones that have the best stories, are the most interesting people. And often their lives are that of hardship or trauma. And I want to tell those stories about what shapes a person and what those struggles look like. It's just what I find interesting. And it's something that I relate to personally, as somebody who is a survivor of different types of violence, who has had, situations in life that I've had to struggle through. It also ties into mental illness, because I feel like often women are not given as much leeway when it comes to mental health struggles as men are. The conversations happen, but as far as what we accept from different people, I feel like sometimes women are not given the same concessions. And so all of that informs my writing. And I just really enjoy writing women who are complicated, who are weird, who are living life outside of what's expected of them. And It's just what I love doing.
If you like this episode, feel free to like, comment, share, and follow for more. To get more mental health info and resources, feel free to contact Chasing Glass directly with any form of questions or concerns. I will be linking Nucci Space's website and blog in the description below, so feel free to look for that or look for any other mental health resources that I will also be putting down in the description. Thanks for watching.